Welcome to Exiles, a Gospel of Mark podcast. We're coming to you from Grace Church in Erie, Pennsylvania, where we're taking what we learn about ancient truths and the person of Jesus into our everyday life. You can check out whoisgrace.com/Mark for the sermon and resources that we're using for this conversation. Thanks for joining us today for the continuation of Season 3. In this section of Mark, we're calling it the Jesus Way. It's going to run for about 3 months. And we're following Jesus through Galilee as he continues his teaching and healing work while training his disciples and facing down the opposition. It's like high action time for Jesus and the disciples. I think, boom, boom, yeah. So a couple intro things. One is, I'm just going to do real quick. Danielle's here. Sarah's here, Stephen's here, and we have a special guest, Sammy.
Hi.
Samantha is here. Our Grace's.
I can't match this estrogen today.
Oh, that's true. It is just you
Hi.
alone. Hi.
Wow.
So excited.
That's all you get.
So Sammy, thank you for joining us. So
Thanks for
excited to
having
talk
me.
to you today. Stephen isn't, but we are.
We are.
So two things. Speaking of estrogen, so I brought a gift for everyone. I brought you guys. There's this viral TikTok sensation going on right now around Swedish candy, and the idea that thanks for acting surprised. The idea that Sweden makes like the best candy, and I guess they have this culture. Of like Fridays where people will like leave work and go to all the candy shops and do like a pick-a-mix bag of candy like every week. Yeah, that's what this is.
In Scotland?
Yeah, so it's like, I think it's probably European, but so they have a whole culture built around this like pick-a-mix thing, stores with like buckets of candy and stuff. What? So I ordered these Viral Bubs is the brand sponsor. Because I know they're listening.
Are they straight import?
They're straight import.
Get out.
Yeah, I don't mess around when I do stuff like this.
Import-export business.
So people might hear us chewing, but I want you guys to just experience them. Like help yourself to one if you want.
This is a lemonade one, right?
That's a pink lemonade one. So here's the thing about these as you're tasting them. Number one, I think America is trying to kill us. Because this candy, the texture is like nothing I've ever experienced before. And it probably has 50%.
Do you want people to hear us chewing?
Oh, that's up to you guys. If you guys let us know if you love it.
Go for it,
You
Steven.
think it's going to be like a taffy, but it's not a taffy.
No.
It's almost like a gum.
Let's go.
It's like this gum that isn't gum. Yeah, and like I got to thinking just about like
It's like an owl.
there's probably, I mean, obviously candy's not great for you, obviously, but like I don't think it probably has like all the dyes that are like killing us slowly and whatever. You can tell even like the flavors are like subtle flavors. They're not like, oh, fake banana, like it is fake, but it's, I don't know. Anyway, America's killing us. That's my soapbox moment.
With candy.
What do you guys think?
I love this.
Sam,
And you're right about the sour.
Yeah, Sammy, you got a plain one. You need to try a sour one too, if you like sour stuff.
I kind of thought it was a little sour.
Well, probably because I put it in the same bag. Oh, Steven, number 2.
Steven.
That's a cola one.
Let's just call
That's
it
a lot of
shall we?
sugar.
Yeah, that's the hardest. Yeah. I mean, yeah, if you look into getting them, you'll be like, wow, I can't believe Danielle spent that much money on Swedish candy.
Are you serious?
Well, because you're importing it.
Oh, it's true.
So it's
Thanks
like the
for joining us
shipping.
for Exiles. We're going to eat candy and
This is delicious.
But I will say, my plan is, I have more of this. My plan is to share it with the neighborhood kids a little bit and like get there.
good
So
idea.
I'm not
They
making
will
that up.
definitely come to Jesus.
Oh yeah, hopefully. So also candy estrogen. Also, happy late Mother's Day.
Yes.
So yeah,
Happy
hope you
Mother's
guys had a
Days.
good Mother's Day. Do you guys have like, what's your like Mother's Day vibes in your family like now or growing up?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any traditions? Do you have any just general thoughts?
No, we've never
Candy.
done anything big. Yeah, this is too good. I'm like too distracted now.
Can I
I
have
know.
a cola one?
Yeah.
The cola's good.
Is the cola good?
It is nostalgic though, for sure.
For you?
It does taste European.
Yeah.
What is the shape supposed to be anyway?
It's a
doesn't
skull.
Oh,
Upside down. You have it upside down.
there it is. Mother's Day.
Oh, yeah, my
Yeah,
bad.
Mother's Day.
So growing up, we didn't do anything crazy. But now, I try to take it as a teaching moment for my sons.
Okay.
On like how to love and respect women and how like
Steven.
gifts are good,
Okay.
those sorts of things. So I always take the boys. It's usually to Tops. It's not like the best flower shop in the world, but I take the boys either to or like Giant Ego or whatever, and we'll
Sponsor.
go. Yeah, sponsor Tops and Giant Ego. And we'll go get flowers. So they get to pick
That's
out their
great.
flowers.
And
they
they
get to
pick
pick.
them out?
They pick out the card, and sometimes it's
That's really
goofy
cute.
and silly, but the whole point is that they're making the effort. So. And then dad will pick one too. And so it's really actually an expensive day because flowers are cheap, but hopefully the principle sticks.
That's great. Dave does a similar thing with Dax. That's cool. Yeah, my Mother's Day cards are like a Superman 4-year-old. Like, you're turning 5. They're like all random. They're awesome. Yeah, they're awesome.
We stay in the Mother's Day column.
They don't.
No, they don't.
Dave's like, pick what you think your
whatever you
mom would
want.
like. Okay. Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for me growing up, our family was always so close. Like, my mom was one of 4 sisters. Yeah. And so at my grandma's house, we would always go there and have like picnics on Mother's Day. So it was just such a thing to like all the husbands, like my uncles, my dad, grandpa, like they would all like do the grilling or like things like that. So like for me, the biggest memories were just, we emphasized being together and kind of just celebrating all the women in our family.
Oh, cool.
But like my sister and I would still like at a young age, we would do those like, we want to make a card and like who knows what actually went in that card. But I just remember it was always like we knew every Mother's Day we were going to my grandma's house, who we called Mama.
Cute.
So, Mama's house.
Mom what? Mom.
Mama.
Mama.
Oh, Mama.
Twice.
Oh.
Mama twice.
I thought you like added like a Y at Mama
twice.
or something.
Mama.
Mama. Okay.
Mau mau.
Yeah.
Yeah, mau.
Yeah. What do we call our grandmas? I'm just curious.
Grandma.
Grandma.
Milo,
was a Nana.
Milo and Sorrow Milo and Sorrow. Sorrow. That's how it feels sometimes. Milo and Sorrowed call their grandma Mimi.
Me.
Mimi.
Mimi.
Are we having an audio problem?
I don't know. No one is not listening.
I guess Dave's stepmom, Dax calls her Beach Grammy
That is
they're
the
close to the
cutest.
beach.
And please
Yeah.
tell me why.
because they live in Myrtle Beach. So he says Beach Grammy and Papa. But then my
That
parents
makes
are Grandma and Grandpa. Yeah, that's pretty cute.
Does
I
anyone
forgot
know
about
anyone that actually calls their grandparents by their like actual first name? Like Nancy.
that. Derek had to call his grandpa
Jack.
Jack. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the only one I've ever heard of that.
Well, because Nicole's
Hey,
family is
Linda.
a little bit extended, more than the other families are. So we have a Papa Kevin and a Papa Joe.
Okay,
Oh,
so like
that makes
actually
sense.
said
And then we
yeah.
have the great old Papa, which is
Otherwise, like,
he's the
400.
he's like 97, 98. He's like Nicole's granddad, or Papa. But yeah. Anyway,
Cute. Random. Well, I hope you had a good Mother's Day.
Yeah,
That's
ditto.
the moral of this story.
That's what we're getting at.
Okay, so Pastor Mike is talking about he talked about Jesus feeding the 5,000 and right? Am I
Yeah.
on the right?
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep.
I always
I
second guess
know.
myself for some reason. So his big idea is that Jesus is easy to miss. And that is an idea for sure. Let's just talk around that for a little bit.
Yeah, I think like everyday things that are happening all around us and things that we're doing and we're involved in, we lose sight of the fact that how involved he actually is. And when something like great happens, we can't help but sometimes just take glory for ourselves and we forget that he's and we remember him later. And we're like, shoot, my bad.
Yeah.
do you guys have a specific story about when that happened?
Sure, I probably did it yesterday. You know
No,
what I
I
mean?
had a moment yesterday.
Did
too.
you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do it.
No, I mean, I think like sometimes I tend to just get so caught up in the everyday task and flow until I actually stop. And so even yesterday, I was like, I just need the sun. Like I have to sit in the sun for a half hour. And so I was just sitting there like eyes closed and it's like you can feel the sun, you can feel the winds, you can hear like the leaves. And I was like, this moment is just like so perfect. It's so simple, but I was just like in awe of just like the very present, like, oh, like I feel God with me through creation in this moment.
Yep.
And like you want more of those moments too, where I was like, oh, like this is always available
Yep.
to me. It's just a matter of stopping and actually taking it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. I have a hard time. I mean, admittedly, I have a hard time noticing Jesus in the day to day.
Yeah.
So
Even as I like look back, I can look back at big moments,
yeah.
obviously, and be like, oh, clearly he was there, he was orchestrating. But in the day to day, I'm like, you know, it's that battle between how much effort you put into something and then how much is God actually working. I think
Yeah.
the story's perfect out, because there's that interplay with the disciples where Jesus is like, well, you go feed them.
You do it.
And I just always think it's funny when you read scripture because we insert tone.
Yeah, totally.
So I don't know if we'll ever know the tone, but like maybe
I
one day
know.
we'll, in heaven,
Tell us.
we'll understand the tone. We're like, oh, we totally misunderstood that.
Yeah, whoops. Built my life around that one.
I do.
Yeah.
Because we are a sarcastic culture.
Yes.
So like how much sarcasm was actually at play in scripture?
Right.
Because I think we read it into text a lot, but
Absolutely.
Mike didn't necessarily do that, but I just,
No.
I have a hard time identifying when Jesus is at work. Maybe pride, but I'm sure that a lot of people definitely struggle with that. I did have a moment today where it's usually annual because we live in Erie, and
Yeah.
Erie has winters, unlike
Sure
other
does.
places in this world, in this nation,
Yeah.
our world. And there's usually a moment like every spring where you like hear the birds sing, or
Yeah.
you step out and you feel the warmth in the air. Rather than
Oh my
the
gosh, that
chill in
tree
the
has
air.
leaves on it now.
Or the tree.
Yeah.
So I had that moment. I
Yes.
hadn't had it up until this morning. I walked out and like the sun was, we live in a beautiful area, just very, very blessed. And the sun was just shining through the trees had leaves in them. It was just casting shadows. It was beautiful.
So
like
pretty.
there was warmth. You could hear the birds. And I'm like, there it is. There it is. It's almost like it's probably dangerous because you like long for that almost every year. You're like, okay, now I can be happy again.
It's true. Yeah, it's like feels fake until that one day happens and you realize you're good. It's too dangerous to
Yeah.
hope.
Because it's May now, right? It won't snow anymore, right? I mean,
It is.
No, we had
definitely
one on
snowed
May.
Memorial
Yeah,
Day.
we had it.
Near
Wasn't
Memorial
that
on Memorial Day.
Near Memorial Day.
Wasn't that
Yeah.
like 2 years ago
was
or something like
recent.
that? It was recent.
Yeah.
We were like, really?
Can't.
May 5th last year. I remember that. So,
I put my shovel away. We're
You
done.
did. Oh, you put it away. What?
Done.
That's flirting with disaster.
I know.
What a phrase.
Yeah.
Flirting with disaster.
Yeah. Do you know about that phrase? So when you guys, we kind of are getting into this, but I want to drill down on it a little bit more practically. So what actually distracts us from seeing Jesus, do you think? Like, can you put words to in your life, what is a regular distraction that we could help people look for?
a busy schedule.
Oh, that's good.
Just like full speed ahead. Like I got 1,000 things I got to do in the whole day. You're just trying to just knock each one off the list, and you're just moving, like just busy, and you don't stop and pay attention to like the sun or the trees or like how is he involved in your day that day, or how could you even use him during your day? Like how could you okay, this is my day today. I need to bring Jesus into this and utilize that relationship for your own good for your day.
Oh, good. Okay.
I think sin's an obvious one, but I want to drill in a little bit because I think just choice sometimes.
Okay.
I think seasons of life. I know I have felt this before, like seasons of life where I'm like, I just don't want to see Jesus right now.
Steven, yes.
Yeah.
Like it's the choice to. I know he's there. I know he's working, but I'm just gonna choose not
I'm gonna do it myself.
to. Maybe I'm not, but I don't know. I think it's just like that act of rebellion that stirs up in us sometimes. It's just like, you know what? No, I'm not going to.
Because sometimes it just feels really hard when you do bring him in. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, oh, this
I
is
think
a
that's fair. Because you know that the road might actually get harder because there's work that you need to do.
Yeah.
yes.
So sometimes it feels easier not to bring them in, and so therefore you push them out, which is obviously pride and self-righteousness.
Yeah.
So that is sin. But I feel that specifically from time to time, even in like when seasons are good, but then you start to see that there's work that needs to be done, and you're like, no, I'm just gonna hang here. Just gonna hang here.
Yeah.
Not interested. I don't want to enter that. So I feel that.
Because sometimes it feels really inconvenient. Like, okay, Jesus, I'm just not ready to work on it right now in this moment, in this season. And so it's easier to just kind of like push them away because it's like, I have too much to do today. I can't think about this thing, or like, it's already so full on in this season right now. I'm going to continue to ignore you, knowing I still have to do something about this. But sometimes, sadly, and it is a sinful nature, but it's like, I know that's going to require a lot of effort of me sometimes. And it's like, do I have the emotional tank for that
That's good.
presently. And not that it justifies it, but I do think that's a real place.
I think another thing to look for is if you notice yourself being intimidated or afraid of silence and space.
So
I've had a lot of time alone lately, and my first inclinations were phone, TV, listen to something, podcast, like, and even before, like, knowing that time was going to come, asking people like, hey, can you add songs to this playlist? Can you just, and I didn't in the moment realize that I was trying to not have silence,
Just
like fill the time.
yeah.
But for me, that's when I'm most attuned to what God's trying to tell me, is when I can have, I don't need days, but if I can have like you're saying in the schedule, like moments, regular rhythms.
Yep.
I'm not perfect at it, but for me, I notice that's a trigger if I'm like trying to be busy, trying to avoid alone time, silent time, whatever you want to call it, time with God.
yeah.
And I think that's partly modeled by Jesus going away,
Yes.
right? After this.
Like he's gone maybe more time than he's present with the disciples.
I think so.
Sometimes
I think so. The way we read it with the same pace, but like if
Yeah.
you really put the time in,
it's like
I would guarantee it.
these moments, and then he's gone again.
He's out.
And then he comes
Yeah.
back. There's a moment. He's
yeah.
out,
Yeah.
which is
Well, even like in this
Challenging.
story, we're going to get there. I'm going to
No, go ahead. No.
Like in this story, he goes off and to spend time with the Father. They leave, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You know what my thought was when I read that part?
Puts
I
him
was
in the
like,
boat.
did they like, were they just like, okay, well, he's on his own. Like, I guess Jesus will just figure it out. Like, how is he supposed to get back? I mean, it's Jesus. He'll figure it out, right? But like, I wonder what the conversation was. And I was like, then all of a sudden he appears on the water and you're like, well, you kind of left him there. So,
or was it a pattern enough at that point?
yeah,
where they're like,
true.
Oh,
Yes.
here he goes. He's off again.
Oh,
Like,
there he
all
goes.
right, he always like,
Like
this
if he
is
got
what he
in
does.
the boat, they'd be like,
what are you doing here?
"What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Okay.
I could see him trying to model a rhythm. Do hard work,
Yeah.
retreat. Do hard work,
And he
retreat.
very well could have been like, you guys go ahead and go. I'm gonna go off. I'll catch you later. And that just isn't discussed.
Yeah, they don't tell us everything.
No.
Obviously.
That's an interesting thought, though, that you bring up, Danielle. Like, he models a
Yes.
rhythm. So I am just thinking about that in our own life. You know, the kids that we have, the people that we're surrounded by, the people that are watching us and, you know, are learning from us.
Yeah.
Like, are we modeling that type of rhythm where if I don't go, this is never going to happen at this stage yet, but
Pretend you have teenagers. Yeah.
but would Marlo say,
Oh, Dad,
"Hey, Dad, you didn't do that today. You usually do that." I mean, that
I
would not be the
absolutely
case.
know Dax is going to be like that. I know he is because it's his personality even now. Like,
Yeah.
why didn't you? Blah.
But I'm saying
just
I don't have that rhythm.
You
in
don't
my
have the rhythm
life,
with this
that
stuff.
public
Yeah.
rhythm in
Right.
my life for him to see
I agree.
me do
Same.
it.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, that's a good challenge.
Way to challenge us, Danielle.
Wow, sorry.
Thank you,
Wasn't
Danielle.
expecting that, Danielle.
What's
Any
your
other-
next small step of obedience?
Stop listening to Danielle. Okay, so we have when Jesus is, so we're in the feeding here, and Mike makes the point that Jesus responded to the crowds with compassion, and the disciples
Irritated.
showed irritation. So, thoughts?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have been. I'm going to be honest. I would have been like,
Irritated.
"We're inheriting this mess. Are you kidding me? Like,
Did we just do this? Didn't we
like,
already do this
Didn't
before?
we just do this?
Like,
and
are
can't
we doing
these
this again?
people bring a sandwich? They know they're going to come. I really would have. I'm just being honest.
Like the incompetency of the crowd.
yes, yeah.
But
These
also,
people again.
I'm like, you know, you're coming here. We don't have any
Why
chairs.
don't you have
We
a
don't
snack?
have any tents. We don't have anything. Get
even
off
a
this guy's
Lunchable.
back. Let him teach you.
Yeah.
And you're welcome.
couple of crackers.
I'm telling you guys, I would
Can you
have
just
been
bring
a
your own
bad one of the
snack?
12. If I would have been one of the 12, this whole thing would not have taken off. I would have been awful. I would have been awful.
and since it already happened once before, like, isn't it kind of ironic that it's happened once before and they didn't instantly have it in their mind as, well, Jesus will just provide the food?
I can get
And
my
isn't
head
that so relatable?
100%. Like, great.
And you know what? Honestly, when this story came up again and Mike did it, I never ever read it as them being irritated.
Oh,
Like,
really?
No, I was just like, I was always focused on why are we like And I won't lie, I get confused. I'm like, what bread? What feeding is this again?
Oh,
what? I get
A
them
lot
all
of people
backwards.
just think there's one.
Yeah, and then like him on the water, and then there's all these boat situations. I'm always getting them all backwards, but like, it's so funny that it's the second time, but this is how we behave. This is what we do, and it's such a reflection of everyday behavior for people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would have been irritated. I would have been absolutely annoyed.
I mean, I never thought of the irritation either. I
No.
think from the disciples' perspective, I always maybe resonated with. So, like, if he did it once before, you would think that they would actually think, oh, he'll provide again. But they still kind of came with that same question of, like, we need to send them away. Like, the hour is getting late. They need food. And it's like, once again, like, you provide with something. And then it's like, I think about that. I'm like, that's sometimes me all the time.
Yes.
With Jesus.
Sometimes
Like, you
me all
did
the
it
time.
before.
That's a good phrase.
That is
Sometimes we
good.
all the time. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do it again? Or
Yeah. Why wouldn't we automatically trust you again?
yeah.
I'm not saying this was the disciples' brain, but my brain sometimes is like, oh, it's a similar situation. I'm gonna win this time. I'm gonna get it this time.
Oh, that's good.
Somebody has to feel that way.
So like,
I got this one.
yeah, Peter and John are like nudging each other.
Yeah.
Like, we can do it this time.
You can do it.
Not Jesus. We got this.
It's so real.
I think another thing that Jesus models, not even just here, but in other situations, is he consistently was meeting physical and spiritual needs.
Yes.
Right? And that's challenging to me as like a follower, just because sometimes I just want to like fix a problem for somebody, or sometimes I just only want to have a spiritual, and it's not always equal everything, but just the idea of remembering that like people are whole people. That's where my mind was going, maybe because we had just had the last live podcast last night or the other night, thinking through just seeing people as people, whole
Yep.
people. Anyway, sorry, tangent.
No, that's
I love a
great.
good tangent.
Yeah, it's good.
That's
What
great.
I appreciate about Jesus in these moments, and we see it's a savvy follower
Yeah.
in him, right? Not just dealing with the Pharisees, but also with these disciples. It's just like, regardless of what was going on in the disciples' heart, like we can imply it, but again, read sarcasm into scripture or whatever. But every time he knew. So even if they were like, hey, we'll get them this time, or hey, we got, like, Jesus, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Let's send them away. We're frustrated. Whatever it is, Jesus knows how to address that heart posture
Right.
in a way that, and I always say my wife has this gift too. Oh. I feel like I can debate relatively well with the next person. And I'm not really intimidated by debate, but the moment I get into like a kerfuffle with my wife, an argument, a kerfuffle, yeah,
What's the difference between a debate and an argument?
I don't think there's much.
Okay.
I think
agree.
it's the
Tone of voice.
it's the heart posture.
Okay, yeah.
like-
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Resolution versus...
You can move into. I think the moment you move into irritation.
Sure.
it
Oh,
starts
gotcha.
to-
yeah,
Okay.
I feel like anger really isn't
Argument.
part of it. Well, I don't know if that's true.
But Nicole has that discernment piece where she like pulls on that thread that you never saw was there. Like it's such
like,
a
"Look at
small little
this."
thread. She's and
Let's
she like
watch
asks
it.
this question. I'm like,
She has it locked and loaded,
You got
ready.
You got me. Yeah.
it's like I don't know. She's so detail orientated, and I feel like that with Jesus sometimes. He's just like, oh, there's the thread. You're not watching it. You
Yeah.
don't see it.
Yeah.
Here we go.
And
Yeah.
he knows, like,
That's true.
Yeah.
they see it before you do. Like, they know what you're going to do before you even, like, do it. Oh, yeah, one step ahead.
Yeah. I'm always like thinking of the words as I'm like debating with Nicole. Like, she won't win this time. She won't win this time. And she wins.
And she wins.
Usually always.
Every time. Good for her.
Good for her.
I'm proud of her.
Okay, let's talk about the walking on the water moment.
Sorry.
Thoughts? Oh, that's all right.
I banged something down here.
Just impressions, thoughts about... Yeah.
Never saw the passing by thing.
What do you mean?
Like when Mike talks about how when he's on the water, he was going to pass by. Like never. That was, I appreciated that so much. And that I will look at that story differently
Yeah, that was good.
all the time. So I appreciated that.
Good.
I do. I appreciate, on that note, I appreciate Mike's back and forth, like his systematic theology, they would call it,
Yep.
going back to the Old Testament.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So referencing
Yes.
Old Testament, New Testament.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good
How it all
because he did
ties
that
together.
with the passing by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Referenced, talked about Elijah, right? Up in the mountain and the Spirit of God passes by. I thought that was really great too. I just, the fickleness of the disciples. This is another multitude of, feeding the multitude, then another water scene. It's like
Again, does this
it's
feel
almost
familiar?
like take two guys.
This is feel familiar.
They're
at all.
gonna get it this time. But for them to be like, ghost, I probably would have done that too.
This is not the one where Peter goes on the water, correct?
It probably is, but Mark doesn't talk.
He doesn't talk
Yeah,
about
he
it.
doesn't tell the whole story.
Because I'm not crazy, right? There is one where he leaves the boat and then he
Yeah,
falls.
you're crazy. It's not in the Bible.
You are crazy. That's a different question. You can still be crazy in this future.
Could you imagine what that was like, though? Seriously, to be sitting there going through it again, and all of a sudden he just appears on the water, and you're like, I don't know. That would just be. I tried to think about what it would have been like to be in their shoes because it's wild. I would have overreacted. Absolutely.
Oh no!
What?
Sarah. No, not you.
I do not believe that for a
I
second.
absolutely would have overreacted. Yes, that would have been insane to me. So I get it.
I just wonder too, like how they were so physically, they're just proximal to Jesus. And they literally they were probably with him hours earlier. And they're like, who was that? Who's that random person walking on the water? Like they're
Like it's not
panic.
even an option in their mind that it could be Jesus.
That-
yeah,
No.
like, and
Yeah, it's not the first thought.
right. And like, it's not the first thought. And they still don't understand the whole picture. They don't
Yes.
understand. This is the Son of God. Like they're still just like, I don't know. And for us now to be this far removed,
I know.
how much,
Yeah.
I guess what I want to say is sometimes I think I have it so together and I get it and I understand it. And then I realize I am too far away from this.
Yes.
Yeah.
To not put these things in my life that keep me accountable, keep me moving forward, I don't want to say moving forward, moving toward Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really good. So we've said already in this series of Mark, like biblical narrative forces us to find ourselves in this story. We want to find ourselves often on the donkey with Jesus. And Derek said that during an Easter sermon, which I thought was good.
That's great.
But so often we need to find ourselves in either one of the disciples or just as the category of disciple, right? But I think that's so good, what you just said. Like they're so close.
Yes.
And we're so removed. Like we can have a really close, intimate relationship, with Jesus, but there's like
There's the
this
foggy mirror.
physical touch,
window.
like, and they've seen it. We're not like 2 weeks into a relationship here. They're years into a relationship.
And think
with
about all the
Jesus at this point.
conversations that we don't know about
Yeah.
that were
Oh
happening.
my goodness.
All the things that
All the other stuff they were talking about, all the other questions they were getting answered that weren't even brought
Yeah.
to the Bible. Like,
Yeah,
'Cause you just look at him and
healed
be
more
like-
than a dozen people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's great accountability
yeah.
for us. Like, let's remove that prideful posture.
Yeah.
Or the assumption that we think we're in a good spot. It's that blind spot in our life. Like, let's not assume that we don't have any blind spots. Let's assume that there is
Yes.
actually a blind spot. And maybe come to Jesus with the, hey, search me, know me.
Yeah, that's good.
Reveal to me the things that I don't know that are going on.
That's really good.
Yeah, because it wasn't even like option A and option B for those disciples. It was like ghost or Jesus. It was just like,
Right.
ghost, no.
Ghost
Yeah.
ghost.
Yeah.
Obviously.
So let's cast lots. So it's a ghost.
Peter like rolled his eyes. He was like, here we go.
Yeah, that's challenging.
I think we talked about this in season 2, but just also the idea that Jesus is not exasperated. He's not like, oh my, you guys.
So patient.
And
calm.
I think especially with Mark, with one of the themes being discipleship failure, I think anytime I'm not actually saying this is true. This is how I feel. Anytime the disciples are going to fail, we're going to hear about it in Mark. So anytime that I think Jesus is annoyed with them, we're going to hear about it in Mark because that was one of his points over the arc of the story he's trying to tell. So it's just, that's also interesting to me. Like we think so often it's like, well, I messed up. I messed up. So he's probably, this
He's
is my
upset.
brain. Yeah.
He's
He's mad at me.
I'm sorry.
That's just not God's posture toward us.
Isn't it wild?
It is wild. We've talked about a lot, like the parenting stuff, just as being like a mirror, but it's just true. I don't ever want Dax to not be close to me, even if he took every single piece of, garbage out of the garbage can and threw it all over the kitchen. Like there's nothing that those are two different.
Yeah.
There's nothing that
emotions.
could happen that would ever, you would ever want that.
And I think sometimes the fear of that maybe keeps some of us behind. I don't know though.
Yeah, I've talked about Nicole a lot, but she models, I think, the heart of God in that very well as a mother too. I'm not as great, but like we've made this commitment to at least let our kids know, like if they have to go to bed, it's a consequence. They did something stupid late at night, like it's bedtime, you know, you don't get to watch your show or whatever, like let's
Straight to bed.
We're still going up there and we're still
Doing the bed ritual.
making them know that we love them. No, we might not even do bed routine, but the words
The love.
I love you
Yeah.
is still coming out. Or like I may be frustrated at you, but or exasperated, whatever, but I still love you because those things are different.
They're
Like my
very
love
different.
for them will never go away, even in spite of the choices that they make in that moment. And Nicole is, I mean, she's just a lot more physically and why can't I?
I don't know.
She's good at embracing, like, you know, going over and giving a hug.
Oh,
like, for me,
physical
it's like,
touch stuff.
I'll tell you I love you, but
Oh,
I
yeah,
might
yeah,
not
yeah.
give you a hug. You
She's
know?
more physical in
But
her,
she'll
yeah.
go over, you know, and she'll go the extra mile. But we've both made that commitment. Like,
Yeah.
we want to exhibit that
That's
love is not absent, and I think that's the heart of the Father as well.
Yeah.
Even though love is not absent.
Very good.
Yeah.
That's a very good way to put
Yeah,
it.
that's really good.
Tap the kids.
You just have pictures of you
Night,
like,
Night,
One
night.
finger,
Love
like-
you.
See ya.
great
Yeah.
job.
Tap.
That's all I got.
I'm gonna. Stephen had the idea of maybe each of us trying to share a time where we saw or recognize God's provision. That's one of the exercises Pastor Mike kind of asked us to do. Where's a time where you saw that God provided or God was there the whole time? Anybody have one?
Yeah.
Stephen better since it was his idea.
Yeah, Steven. I mean, I can think of, so when I moved from Australia to California, and like I knew that's where God was calling me to go. And so it was in pursuit of a job. And like, for one, living in Australia, it's not like you had a lot of money. You're paying for like everything, your school. So it was like I had to spend a lot of money, like to get on a plane to come back to America, land in California. And I'm thinking, okay, like this job's going to line up. Things are going to be good. And it just seemed like nothing was like falling into place. And I remember getting there. I was sitting in a Starbucks with a gift card with like $300 left in my account because I just paid like my first month's rent, and I was like, I only have $300 left in my name.
Oh, I thought you meant on your Starbucks card for a second. I was like, excuse me?
I wish. No,
sorry,
That's a
no.
hard life.
I was like, Sammy, maybe pivot the story.
No,
Sorry.
it, no,
Okay.
it
I
was
like,
good.
What?
Well, and I just,
Persecution.
You would have $300 on a Starbucks card.
it was probably like $5, and I had to like still find a few extra quarters because you know a Starbucks drink is at least $7,
Yeah.
if anything. But I remember just sitting there and being like, God, you called me here, but like I'm kind of between a rock and a hard place. This is impossible. I only have this much money left. So what am I going to do? Looks like I'm going home. And so randomly, the next day, I just get a random message from a woman I knew in Australia. And the crazy connection was she was someone I connected with for work at the time. We just built up a good relationship, always like generous towards me, really took me in. So she knew, like, she didn't know my predicament or anything. And I just get a random message from her the next day. It was like, hey, God has laid you on our hearts, and we know we have to give you like $5,000. Like randomly. Like I was just like, no, like, no, it's fine, it's fine. But I was shocked because I was also in that position where I was like, I'm just like gonna have to go home. This isn't gonna work out. And so obviously, and this is sometimes like even the blessing of God that comes in and we don't want to receive it or we feel like we're unworthy to receive it.
Yeah, that's good.
So even regardless of like a dollar amount or anything, it was just like it met a need in a way I didn't think was even possible for me. It was just the generosity of someone else. And so eventually like work and things fell into place, but it was just, hey, God laid this on our heart to provide for you. And it was just in a way I would have never expected for myself. But it changed the way I thought about, and like, once again, like something like that happens. He's taking care of you. And it was probably like 2 weeks later, I'm worried about something else.
Something else.
And he's like,
sure. Yeah,
I
Because
got
you put
it.
$300 in our Starbucks.
yeah. Spend your money wisely, Sammy. But that's true, and it's
Party.
that's such a beautiful reflection of like how God really knits us together as siblings. Like we don't talk about that
Yeah.
super often, but you know, you might feel a tug of something. We all have these like threads that are connecting us that we don't even totally
Right.
clock, you know?
Right.
And just you need to be obedient in those moments, and that's
Yeah.
such a blessing.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Mine's kind of weird. So we were supposed to adopt a child before Dax. It was exactly 1 year before, and everything was great. Good relationship with the family. Everything. The day of the birth, everything just went sideways. But that's a long story. Anyway, we ended up not adopting that kid. Now leading up to that, so adoption is interesting because people get really excited. They want to support you. It's great. Like just like you're birthing a baby. And so we had a like shower kind of a thing, and we had like a diaper thing. Dave had this diaper thing at this bar, and like all these kinds of things preparing for this birth. So we ended up not having this kid come home with us, this baby come home with us. So we came home to a completely done nursery, car seat fitted in the car, you know, all the things. Okay. I don't know if I can even still articulate the like level of grief. It was bad.
Bad.
So, you know, walked through that, whatever. Fast forward 1 year later, we didn't find out. We kind of like, we knew we wanted to adopt. We always knew that was going to be part of our story just before we even got married. But we definitely took our foot off the gas. We're like, we'll just let it go. We won't like call the agency. We won't do the checkups. You know, we'll just like let it lay. So we got a phone call from our social worker, and she was asking me, hey, do you have a car seat? There was a kid that was born and blah, blah, blah. And she wasn't really good at communicating.
You're like, come again?
And Dave was instantly angry because he's like, why are they calling us to ask us? Because we live kind of near the hospital for a car seat. He's like, this is so insensitive, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and I'm like, yeah, I don't understand what's going on. So she came over. She's like, thank you so much. I'm so glad you had this. I'm like, yeah, we have everything from last year.
Thanks for reminding us.
Yeah, we have all of it. She's like, oh, thank you. All right. Yeah, because he's underweight, blah, blah, blah. So what they're going to do is they're going to fit him in here. And then if he does the oxygen test, okay, you can come tomorrow, get him, bring him home. Like, this is, I'm not exaggerating. This is literally the, she's like, bah, 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 bah. That's just how she talks. Like, it was very like.
You're like, you left this out.
What? And then she like left. And she left. And she like gave us a hug and, oh, yeah.
That wave behind
She
her, like,
leaves.
got in
And
the car.
I'll never forget it. We were just standing there, just like staring.
Like, what happened?
And the wave that came over me, it was this like wave of just like,
This is happening.
well, it wasn't even that. It was just like, I literally saw like every Rubbermaid container in the basement, every like thing, because everything was the same. Like the time frame was the same, the age, the clothes, like the clothes that Dax wore for the first year of his life were for this other preparation for this other kid. So God was like preparing us a year in advance for a 24-hour notice to be completely ready to take a baby. Yeah.
Oh, it's like that saying where it's like sometimes God takes a long time to do something suddenly. But even like, what did the letting go feel like? I mean, like grief hits so hard.
Yeah.
It's like, what did that really look like for you?
When the grief part? Or the,
like when you're like, we're just not even pursuing it at this point.
I think it was trauma-based. It was very like...
Survival mode.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think I can handle another one of these right now.
Yeah.
That's where it started. It was like a very protective thing.
Yep.
And then it did, to be honest with you, it did turn into a more, we just need to surrender it. We have no control over it. Obviously, we can prepare, we can do what we want, but God's going to decide what kid needs to be with us.
You just gave it to him. Let him.
And all the while he was already doing that. And I think in that year, he was doing stuff in us that needed to happen.
Sure.
Obviously.
Yeah, you think about that from another angle, like that person may not have even been pregnant at that point because 9 months, right?
Yeah.
But during the course of that 12 months, like God was preparing this other individual who was about to give birth to this son. Like,
Right.
how was her heart,
Right.
navigating all
Right.
of these waters, the choices that she would make in order for Dax to end up as part of your family. That's pretty, that's incredible. It's incredible. When I think about, I mean, I have God faithfulness stories with finances and people being incredibly generous, being super broke as a small church pastor, youth pastor. My first salary was $15,000 a year as a youth pastor.
Cha-ching.
Raining in it, right?
Raining
So
in.
I've had many financial blessings, but as I reflect in your story about Dax, reminding me about this, it's like God's hand in providential relationships.
Oh yeah.
Like I don't have a lot of friends, to be perfectly honest with you. Marlo asked me the other day, and I'm like, I know a lot of people, but like I've had this conversation with some people. When I call you a friend, it's just different, right? So people might get insulted by that, but I'm not going to probably call you a friend, because if I'm calling you a friend, there's a level of loyalty and longevity that we're committing to. Yeah. So I don't have a ton of friends, but I think about the providential relationships throughout the years that I like. Had that person not been there, I would not be where I am today. And it was not even like they came in just before something crashed and burned, but it was like, okay, for this season, this and I look back and I'm like, never once have I ever been alone. God has never let me alone, but never once have I ever not had that, sort of either right-hand person where you can always call or whatever. So I'm always grateful for that. So, my encouragement to people is to look around, like, what are those providential relationships that you may actually be missing that Jesus has put in your life? Or you may actually be, to Sammy's point, you may actually be refusing or rejecting. Because there's these moments where God goes, here's your blessing. And you go, nope.
No thanks. Yep.
I got this.
I've done that a million times.
So, yeah.
You took it.
Yeah, that's good. Well, yeah, this was a little bit of a different discussion than we normally do, but I think when I was watching the sermon, I just kept thinking, like, okay, we just need to like model what this looks like and try to help ourselves first, and you guys also just be able to think through and navigate how to look for God in action, really, and how to look for Jesus in your life. And so I think the discipleship question, the theme is on discipleship failure. And the question is, what's holding me back from looking more like Jesus, is a great question. I'm going to read it again because it actually is like, it's pretty profound. And ask yourself this: what is holding me back from looking more like Jesus? It's extremely open-ended, but it's also potentially extremely deep for each one of us. And I guess my encouragement, and you guys could speak to this too, my encouragement to you would be to ask that question of yourself and ask other people that question about you, if you'd be so bold to do so. Someone you trust, someone that you're...
A friend.
Yeah, a friend.
Yeah, I don't know, I feel allowed to give this encouragement as well. In that question, a good exercise might be... Because I think there's going to be one or two camps. There's going to be, well, I don't know. And then there's going to be people like 1,000 things.
Yeah, overwhelmed by
I think if we're all honest, we could probably identify 3 or 5.
Sure.
And so I think a really good exercise for people to listen is to make a list of 3 or 5.
That's great.
Like, don't feel the pressure, but at least jot something down. Like there's when you put thoughts into action, there's something different that happens.
Agreed.
And then share it with a providential relationship.
That's good.
And it may not be a friend, it may be a mom. It may be a dad, it may be a providential relationship that God has just surrounded you by, a safe space that and you can ask them to evaluate that with you. Because as I think about it in my life, I can think of about 5 things right now of trends in my life that hold me back from following Jesus more or looking more like Jesus. And they might not be grievous sins, but they're roadblocks that I continue to put up. They're trends in my life that I may even minimize at times, but God has gone, I want to do some work in that area. It might not even be I want to remove it. It might just be I want to do some work in that area.
That's great.
Yeah.
He'll do it.
But I think we're great in the Western culture of just like thinking about things
Yeah.
and not actually putting pen to paper.
That's
So
yeah, it's great.
just feel led to say that.
That's really good. Well, thanks guys for your conversation
thank
today.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sammy.
Yeah, thank you.
Come again.
Yeah, come again, please.
Come back.
Thanks for
I
having
think
me.
she will be back, maybe. Okay, and a reminder to you guys, if you go to whoisgrace.com/Mark, that's where those resources are. And you can also submit a question. You can submit your 5 things if you want.
Oh, shoot.
We won't tell anybody, or we will if you want us to.
Anonymous.
But yeah, would love to hear from you if you're at whoisgrace.com/Mark. And otherwise, we will see you next week. Thank you.
Bye.